we're going to start with me talking about how do you assemble a team. And I'm going to go into the details of how do you find people. One of the things that I'm told by coaching clients, other people that I run into is the legal market is very tight. It is impossible to find somebody. I've been looking for so long and I can't find somebody. So you're willing to make the hire, but you haven't found somebody. And I will tell you that unless there are no attorneys in the world, and unless there's no people in the world, that's BS. It's pure BS. Now, it's not true that there aren't any. It might be a tight labor market. It might be difficult to find people, but they are findable. The question is, are you offering a good enough deal for them to want to work for you? Are you providing a good enough environment for them to want to work for you? If you attract a rock star person to your team, what do you think your business needs to be? A place where a rock star person can elevate and grow both personally and professionally. So when we're approaching the conversation of assembling a team, it behooves us to approach it with the lens of, would I want to go there? Would I want to go work for me? And if the answer is not a hell yes, that's the thing we got to work on first. Because there are people out there in every role, every configuration possible, they exist. It's not a unicorn we're looking for. Although our keynote speaker is talking about unicorns, but it's not a unicorn. Because A players are all around us. You can look at your largest competitors and say, what? Well, how come that firm has no problem assembling a team of 20 attorneys and I can't find one? That's a good question to ask. It's the wrong question, but there's nothing wrong with exploring that question because we can easily, and the first thing that somebody will tell me is, oh, they can afford to pay somebody X. They can afford to pay them more. And this is where I want you to change your mindset, change your way of thinking. Because as I'm going to demonstrate in the upcoming slides, when you are trying to save a few dollars when hiring somebody, you're creating a much more expensive problem. And that could be the thing or the reason that you might be struggling and getting traction in the growth of your business. And perhaps there's a new perspective. Perhaps there's a new way to look at it, which is paying somebody $10, $20, or even $50,000 more is actually not more expensive than offering a lower salary. Because now you can attract somebody who's going to get you the results that are going to pay you not fivefold, tenfold, whatever that investment was. Let's jump in to Dream Team, assembling the staff that will double your income in 2025. So we all know the old adage, hire slow, fire fast. Hire slow, fire fast. And what does this mean? It means that we should hire slow and we should fire fast. Now, hire slow doesn't mean sit on the fence and try to figure out whether or not you should hire somebody. What it does mean is during the hiring process, take your time. Do not be in a rush. If you hire out of urgency, what will happen? If we hire out of urgency, if I'm desperate for help, I'm in over my head, I need to get somebody in place as quickly as possible. What happens? So Jared says you make bad hiring decisions. And Jared, you're absolutely right. And it's not necessarily that I hire the wrong person. It's Rachel's got it, right? Rachel says miss red flags. Rebecca says you settle. April and Tyler say bad culture fit. All of these are spot on because if we rush through the process, if we're urgently trying to find somebody, we're going to play mind games with ourselves and we're going to put somebody into that seat that is not the right person for that job. Thank you, Karen. Right? Now, I'm going to lay out yesterday, Krista and David showed us the cost of an inefficient employee. I'm going to lay out the cost of a bad hire, and it is mind blowing. It is a lot more than the $30,000 that she showed us, and I'm going to show that to you now. Fire fast is also really important. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on firing, but I'm just going to take 60 seconds right now to talk about it, and it's very simple. Somebody who is a underperformer is a cancer to your business. Very simply, they cause you a loss of productivity. They cause you a false sense of security, right? You think I have somebody in that role and therefore I'm growing, but you're really not. They also affect the people around them. So people who could be rock star employees and who could be A players get demoted to B players because they're around a C player. It's infectious. And I call it a cancer because what do you want to do? If you were diagnosed with cancer, how quickly would you want the doctors to start chemo or get you in surgery and get that thing out of your body? You can answer in chat if you want, but I know everybody's going to have the same answer, right? Immediately. Can we schedule it today? I don't want this thing growing or spreading. That's how we have to treat a bad employee. Now, why do we take longer to fire somebody than we should? Very simply, because we think we're going to fix them. We think it's something that could be fixed. It could be we can effectuate positive change in their life. We can inspire them to do better. I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that. On one condition, that you give it a very specific, small, finite set of time and you are very clear with them that that's what you're doing. So in other words, I'm going to have a conversation with employee A. I'm going to say, listen, you're not pulling your weight. Here's what I need you to do. Here's what you are doing. There's a big gap between that. We're going to take 2 weeks, and I need to see XYZ happen in those 2 weeks. If we cannot fix this, we're going to have to find other alternatives. If we can fix it, then I'm willing to work on the next 2 weeks to try to get you closer to where we need to be. And give it very small time increments and very purposeful action steps and very purposeful measurable steps to be able to see, can this person actually do the thing that I need them to do? And if they're not meeting it, if they can't do it, if you told them, listen, it's going to be 2 weeks, you're out the door kind of conversation, and they didn't do it, that should be the all clear signal for you to basically show them the door. And we also get stuck on the personal side, right? Like either I've developed a relationship with them or I'm such a warm person. I love people so much that I can't put somebody out on the street. They quit their other job to come here. How could I fire them, right? But if they're not achieving their full potential in your business, by keeping them there, you're actually keeping them in jail. You're actually keeping them stuck when they should be freed to go find the thing that's going to allow them to rise to their full potential. So you're helping them by letting them go. You're helping them by firing them. Okay, we're not going to spend any more time on that. Let's go to our next thing. But what if I desperately need somebody now, right? I waited too long. I'm at max. I'm at my max. I'm working 60 hours a week and there's no end in sight. My customer service is faltering because of it. I so desperately need somebody now. If you need somebody now, I need you to first recognize the cost of a bad hire. And I told you that we're going to go through this, so here we go, okay? Here's the cost of a bad hire. If their salary is $100,000 and we have a 90-day period where we're paying them, and then at the end of the 90 days we decide to let them go, we've paid $25,000 of their salary, but we didn't get the productivity. So that was a cost, right? That was a waste of money, 25,000 bucks. I might have paid a recruiter to hire that person, or I might now have to hire a recruiter to make the next hire because I lack the confidence that I'm going to be able to make a good hire. So that cost me $20,000. I have the underperformance of the business because of the delayed time in being able to do that work. So we have work that should have been produced during this time. So during this 90-day period, we had work that should have been produced but wasn't. So it's not only the cost of the salary, like Kristen David showed us, but it's also the loss of the work that should have been accomplished. So if we say that an attorney should bring in $1 million a year of revenue, and if we say that they were only 25% productive, so we had a loss of productivity of 75% of what could have been, multiply that times 25% for the 90-day period, that gives us $18,750 of lost revenue during their employment that we could have generated had they done the work. Then there's also lost opportunities while hiring. Lost opportunities is what I could have done in the next 90 days. So now I've got the next 90 days where another new attorney is getting hired, but actually it's going to take longer because I'm going to let them go, and now I start the recruiting process all over again. How long does it take to find a good person and hire them? If you find somebody in 1 or 2 weeks, you're a rock star. It's going to take 1 month, 2 months, maybe even 3 months. Even if you actually find somebody 6 weeks into the process, the vetting process takes time. Them giving notice to their job and being available to come work for you takes time. So we've got, besides for the lost 90 days that I had this person employed, I now have 90 days that I'm recruiting a new person and I have no productivity. And then I have the next 90 days where we have decreased productivity. But let's just deal with the 90 days. It's the same math, right? We're operating at a decreased efficiency for 25% of the year, 18,750. I could have gone with a higher number here because it actually is more, but let's just use that. Staff time, so staff time spent interviewing. They interviewed, they went through this whole process, we hired somebody, now we got to start it again. Okay, I assigned $2,000 because I'm saying, okay, it's an offshore VA that I'm working, but this is actually a much higher number, but let's just use the low number, right? Damage to reputation. Now, the damage to reputation is basically the bad customer service that you provided because you were relying on an attorney to do their job and they didn't do it, right? The damage to reputation, we can assume, maybe means that you're going to get 2 less clients every month for the entire year until you fix your reputation. You're going to have to get good reviews on top of bad reviews. Well, at $4,500 a client, $9,000 a month, that's $108,000 of lost revenue due to damage to reputation. So a bad hire, at a minimum, costs you $192,500. I'll say that again. At a minimum, a bad hire costs you $192,500. This is not fake. This is real. This is why we want to take our time in the hiring process. And if we approach it from, but I desperately need somebody now, you're going to make a $200,000 mistake. And we don't want to make a $200,000 mistake. Who would rather have $200,000 in their pocket than flush it down the toilet? I'm sure everybody's hands going up, right? Me, I would love to have doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank. I'd love to have another $200,000. Yes, please. Right? So, desperately need somebody now. You need to figure out a stopgap. You need to figure out, how am I going to take the edge off the urgency? How am I going to take this from an emergency down to just a basic necessity? So here's some things that you can do. So before we even go into how to hire somebody, we got to solve this immediate need. So here's 3 ideas for you. Actually it's 4 ideas. The 4th idea is the gold. I'm going to save showing that bullet for last, okay? Project-based contract labor. There's marketplaces for literally every type of labor out there. Jacqueline Foster is going to be talking today. She's got a marketplace for paralegals. You have lawclerk.legal, where you can get contract attorneys. You have Upwork, where you can get practically anybody with any skill set that's not professional, so or even some professional. So like bookkeeping services, you can find on Upwork if you need something in a crunch. Marketing services, any technology services, technology implementation, you can find basically anything, anything you need in your business that you need just a specific project done. You can go in Upwork, you can put the project out there, you can find somebody to do it. So project-based contract labor is a way of getting the work done now without needing to make a hiring decision right now. Fractional work is where you hire somebody who does things fractionally. For example, we do fractional CFO services here in our business. Other people do fractional CMO services where they're a fractional marketer. There are people who do fractional work for a living in specific areas. So if you can find somebody who does fractional legal work, they can come in and just be, doing 10 hours of legal work a week for you. That could be a solution to the problem. Referral out. Send your people to your competition. I don't mean permanently. I don't mean, and I don't like to call, I don't believe in competition. So I'm not, I said that because that will help you understand. But this is so important that it's worth getting somebody else involved to handle the overflow so that you're not turning people away. So you are providing a solution. And it's lawclerk.legal, lawclerk.legal, lawclerk.legal. So, and by the way, lawclerk.legal was one of the first sponsors of the Law Firm Growth Summit back in 2019. They sponsored our very first event. So really big fans of them for doing that. They're continuing to reap the rewards in this session. Referral out is the last one where you're basically solving the problem. Now here, this is the bonus point that I'm going to share with you. Okay, the bonus point is this: raise your prices. I can guarantee you, every single person in attendance today can raise their prices and will not lose business. We do not charge enough. Thank you, Silvana. So that's a really good point. Get staffed up. You can hire VAs through them. They're sponsor of this event. And that can be a solution to solving some of the temporary problems depending on what your needs are. Raising prices this is like a ninja trick, okay? Because typically we raise prices from the bottom up, meaning I charge $250 an hour, so I'm going to go to $275. I charge $3,000 for an estate plan, so I'm going to go to $3,250. But what happens is when we raise prices that way, we never know how far we could go. So we go a little bit, it doesn't hurt us, we get used to the new number, and now we sit that way for 6 months or a year or 2 years until we decide to try it again. When you're full, you don't have room for clients. This is your chance to swing for the fences. This is when you can say, I normally charge $250 an hour. For the next 10 consults I have, I'm going to tell them I charge $550 an hour. I normally charge $3,000 for an estate plan. For the next 5 consults I have, I'm going to charge them $7,500 in an estate plan. Hike your prices to the highest number you could possibly imagine charging for that service. And understand you're doing 2 things with doing that. Number 1, you're testing the market to see what people are willing to pay without stepping into it slowly. Number 2, if somebody says yes, you're going to be thrilled because now you're serving one client who is getting the same revenue that 2.5 clients were doing before, right? So you have less work, more revenue, beautiful. If they say no, you can't serve them anyway. You don't have the capacity. So if you had charged less and they said yes, you couldn't serve them. So that wasn't a solution. So at least now you're getting data to tell you how many no's you're going to get at that price point so you can decide whether it still makes sense to keep that price. So raising prices is the best thing to do when you're full, when you have no capacity and you're thinking about turning away business. it is a perfect opportunity to hike your price, and I would go 2.5x whatever you're charging right now at a minimum. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels wrong, try it as a test of the marketplace. At least you're going to know where you can be, and that data is going to be invaluable. Okay, cool. So what does a hiring process look like? And this I'm going to go through a little bit faster. I think that, the earlier slides I needed to make a point, but now we're just going to go through the logistics of the hiring process. And this is really important. If you don't have a process, you don't have to follow mine, the one I'm sharing here, but if you don't have a process, you want to make sure that you are creating one. So we want to make sure that we have some sort of process, and write it down and then follow that same process for every hire. It's going to allow you to prevent making mistakes. So what are we doing? We're identifying the firm clarity, okay, a right fit for the firm. We're identifying position clarity, a right seat for the job. We're going through a recruiting phase where we need to find the candidates. We're going to go through an offer phase where we offer the position to them. Then we go through an onboarding phase where they first start. And then we go through a trial period where they're on trial, right? The jury's out on whether they were telling us the truth in the interview process, and their actual work is gonna demonstrate that. So identifying firm clarity, you have mission alignment and you have core values alignment. Basically, do they have a reason to be in touch with our mission, or are they personally, the way they're living their personal lives, in opposition of our mission? Like, if you're a criminal defense firm and they keep getting arrested, probably not a good fit, right? If your mission is to prevent, help people, die in peace and prevent families from fighting over their money, and the person comes in and says, I really love what you do because, my parents don't talk to their siblings because of the way that they fought over their parents, my grandparents' assets when they died, and now I don't have contact with my uncles and aunts. I don't want anybody else to go through that. That's mission alignment. Core values alignment is where you have a set of core values, they have a set of core values, and we want to try to find commonalities between those. So what's the process of going through this? Here's an example of our mission statement here at Profit with Law. I shared this with you yesterday in the opening statement, in the opening remarks. Empowering all people with wealth creation so that this and future generations can lead a better life. Really powerful. And we're trying to find people who at least can get in alignment with that, right? Like they can understand that this is something that I want to get behind, and I'm going to carry this as my mission. Core values. Our top 5 core values here at Profit with Law are: love everyone, be in service to others, pursue growth, enjoy freedom, live with optimism. If you would like us to send you the exercise that we send to candidates, to basically say, here is an exercise of how to write down your 5 core values, send us back the results. We do that with every candidate that we're going to hire. If you want a copy of that, I'm happy to share it with you. Just drop your email into chat. My team will gather those emails and we'll send that out to you. So what we do is we have the candidate take their 5 core values, and then we look for alignment, and we want to get a match of at least 2. 3 is even better. So 2 out of 5 values is a minimum, and then 3 or better is a good match. What happens if we don't have alignment of core values? What happens if they've got 5 core values, there's nothing wrong with them, but not one of them matches ours? They're a no-go. We're not hiring them. Not because they're a bad person, not because there's any problem, but because if the 5 things that are most important to me are not any of the 5 things that are most important to them, how likely are they to be an A player on my team? How likely are they to make the right decisions when dealing with my clients if I want to act a certain way and they don't necessarily feel like they should act a certain way? So you got to have a good fit with the business if you're going to work in the business. Otherwise, they might do a great job in year 1. They might do a great job in year 2, but they're not going to stick around. They're going to be a temporary good fit. We want lifers. Now, people are not going to stay for life necessarily, but we want people who are going to stay for a while. who are going to really achieve the best result. And maybe they're going to come out, the other side because we don't have anything more to give them and they need to move on. But it's not because it's a bad fit. Okay, then we're going to identify position clarity. Position clarity is role, responsibility, requirements, location, and salary. And I'm going into some of these in depth, but not all of them. So let's just go through real quick. Role, you know what you're hiring them for, identify what that role is. Responsibility, responsibility is what they're responsible for. Again, you know what that is, identify it, write it out. So it's very clear, this is what you're going to be responsible for. Requirements is something that, requirements, location, and salary, I'm going to go into more in depth. Requirements is, people get mixed up between this is required and this is what I really would like. And what ends up happening is at the beginning, we set it up too restrictive, okay? So if you make it too restrictive, what's going to end up happening is when you can't find anybody, you're going to go back and you're going to say, okay, let's make it less restrictive. But if you're willing to make it less restrictive from the first place, then why don't you make it less restrictive from the first place, right? So open the door to having the most candidates come in and then use your filtration process to choose the best ones rather than putting requirements out there that are not true requirements. So only use absolutes like they must be licensed to practice in Texas. I'm in Texas. They have to be a Texas barred attorney, right? That's a requirement. Or, for example, we're hiring a senior tax person right now. The first time that we went through to hire that role, we said a requirement was to be a CPA. But the reality is I don't need somebody to be a CPA in that job, right? If they've got 10 years of experience doing tax work, if they know all the things they need to know, I don't need them to be a CPA. I don't even need them to be an EA, an enrolled agent. I just need them to be able to do the job, to be personable with customers, to be able to make my clients happy and to get the best result for them, right? So by putting CPA as a requirement, it's not true. It's not an absolute. Therefore, we removed it, right? So only put in absolutes, the things that if they don't have this, they're not a candidate for this position. Years of experience is not an absolute. It is a big mistake to put minimum of 5 years of experience needed. Okay, don't make that a requirement. You could make a list of things these are nice to haves, right? This is going to help you get the job. You can put that list out there, but in the requirements section, we're not putting years of experience. Instead, let's consider another measure, right? So for example, must have represented at least 100 criminal defendants, or must have independently created at least 20 irrevocable trusts. Quantify what you're really looking for, the number of years experience. They could have worked for 5 years and really be crappy at their job. The 5 years doesn't tell you anything, but the quantity of production, that might tell you something. So maybe the requirement could be around that, or just don't list requirements, right? Obviously, the first time that we posted a position with a CPA required, you know how many applicants we got that weren't CPAs? So having an absolute requirement in there is helpful to just have a filtration process to say nope, 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 and not waste your time and effort on that person. But be careful about not eliminating candidates who could be good candidates for you. Location, I want to take the same idea around, okay? People want to work remote these days. So consider a fully remote role if you're able to, and if that's the case, then now you increase your candidate pool exponentially because you can hire from literally anywhere. So even if you're hiring an attorney, for example, right? Like let's say you do estate planning, and let's say that you have somebody in the office that could do the signing. You don't need to be there for the signing, so they can meet with your clients on Zoom remotely. Then you can hire an attorney who's doing a year abroad in I don't know, in China, and they can work for you. So by opening your candidate pool, you're going to have potentially A players that you wouldn't have had access to, or people that would be willing to work for you for less just to be able to have a job that they can't get otherwise, right? Consider a partially remote role. Fully in-person should be used only when that is truly required to get the job done. If they're doing criminal defense, they got to go to court every day, then that's an in-person job. But we don't unnecessarily limit the pool. Salary. This is a really important one, and I'm going to spend some time on this. Time I don't really have. If you want to attract the best talent, you have to pay the best price. When we're hiring, when we're a small business and we're hiring, we tend to approach this challenge from the lens of what do I have today? And when we approach it from the lens of what do I have today, what ends up happening is that we create an environment where we've already set ourselves up for failure. Instead, what if we approached the conversation from what is this going to make possible for our firm? Right? If you're, let's say you're hiring an attorney. It's the best example that everyone can understand, right? You're hiring an attorney. What is that attorney worth from a revenue perspective if that attorney was fully booked, right? And we made a case yesterday for $1 million. It depends on the practice area, but anywhere from 750,000 to about 3 million is what one attorney can produce in revenue for your firm, depending on your practice area. So would you agree that if they were already producing 750,000 to 1 million for your firm, you probably wouldn't have a problem paying them $120,000 to $150,000, right? But yet, when small business owners, solos, small business owners, even if you're at 2, 3 million, you're hiring your second attorney, your third attorney, when you approach this problem, you always approach it from this lens of what do I have right now? And when we approach it from that lens, we're going to want to pay less. And when you want to pay less, what happens? You don't attract the top talent. Top talent doesn't want to work for somebody who wants to pay less. They want to work for somebody who wants to pay them what they're worth. So if you want to attract the best talent, you have to pay the best price. Do not advertise a job listing with no salary attached to it. You need to be aggressive. This is not the place to be cheap. Raise the base, the bottom line number you're willing to pay, and post that in the job posting. So if everybody else is looking to hire an attorney, look, there's 5 postings for attorneys out there, and they're all paying a bottom line, base price. The first number is, 90,000. Put yours at 100. Put yours at 110. Put yours above where everyone else is so that when somebody's looking, you're the one that they want to talk to first. Make the upper level, the top level of the range, an insanely eye-popping number. I'm going to explain to you how you could do this ethically in just a moment. Justify the range with a performance-based compensation arrangement. Okay, so that's how you're going to justify it ethically. So here's what that looks like. Experienced estate planning attorney is what we're looking to hire. Salary range, 120,000 to 400,000. Now you're probably getting scared just looking at that number, right? But I want you to post that number, and here's why. Because let's say you're willing to pay as much as 20% of revenue that the attorney brings in or the attorney is responsible for to the attorney, right? If the attorney does 500,000, you're happy to pay them 100,000. If the attorney does $1 million, you're happy to pay them 200,000. If they do 2 million, you're happy to pay them 400,000, right? Now, a really good attorney can do an estate plan in 3 hours or 2 estate plans a day. If you were providing enough customers for them to do that, a good attorney can do, with the right supports in place, could do 2 estate plans a day. An estate plan is $4,500 each. I'm just using this as an example. So our ceiling for the attorney, the top number is 40 clients per month at $4,500 each, which is $2 million in revenue. 20% of 2 million, 400,000. That's how you can ethically put 400,000 as the upper end of the range for that salary. Now, if you were an attorney looking for a job and you saw a job posted with a range of 120 to 400, would you be jumping to apply for that job? You're an attorney. If you saw a job posting for 120 to 400, would you apply? This is how you get A players in the marketplace, right? And you can, in the interview process, demonstrate to them how they can achieve 400,000 so it's not fluff. It's really cool stuff. On the flip side, now, just on the downside, right? 120,000, same math. They only need to serve 10 clients a month, and you're still only paying them 20% of the revenue they're bringing in. 10 clients a month, that's what, like 2.5 a week? We all think that the attorney we're hiring could do that, right? So even that number that sounds scary, that 120, is not a big barrier. It's not a big number. And that's at max profitability of 5x their salary. We're paying them 10,000 a month to break even. That's 2.5 clients. This is a no-brainer, right? Don't get in your own way by decreasing the salary you're willing to put out there.